Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad you're all here. This is our first webinar under the Mountains and Plains Thriving Communities Collaborative, MapTech. And we thought it was a good one to start with, just trying to all of us understand all the scope of the grant writing services and resources that we have under MapTech. So I think that this will be a really worthwhile time for me specifically, but it'll be nice for folks to be able to view this recording at a later date as well. So I was just going to let Ben say a couple quick words here. Ben's our program manager for MapTech and has been hustling and working hard to get all of this going. So I'll let him say a quick hi, and then we will launch in with Melissa. And Melissa, I will, while he's talking, make you a co-host so you can share your screen.
Great. Thank you, Barb. And nice to see everybody. Welcome today. This is exciting. This is our first webinar for MapTech. So this is an exciting moment. It's also our very first day of now being live. We have officially launched. August 14th is here. And so very exciting. Some of you hopefully will have just seen the announcement in your mailbox. And we are just thrilled to be ready to go. A few notes to make just so for future viewers, we are the Region 8 Tic Tac serving all 6 states in Region 8, Montana, South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado. We also serve all 28 federally recognized tribes. We have a wide variety of partners who we are all very, very grateful for their involvement. I encourage you to visit our website to take a look at our full list of partners and look at our staff page to understand who's on our team. We offer a wide range of services, all the way from assistance with funding strategy to grant proposals to assistance with technical questions. And we also offer trainings for specific organizational funding, project implementation resources. So we are very excited to get launched here. We are also excited to introduce our community resource engagement specialists. We'll have 5 in each state. And eventually, right now, we have 3 of the 5 hired, and eventually we'll be a team of 5. Those three, Barb, Alan, Austin Holmes, and Leah Bradford, are on the call today. So welcome to them. They are really our folks on the ground. I really encourage anyone to reach out with questions. Visit our website, email us, call us. Feel free to start populating that request form. So if you have technical assistance questions, feel free to go onto our site and fill out that TA request form. So we are ready to go, and I welcome you and encourage you guys to get in touch. With that, let's kick off this webinar, and I'll hand it over to Melissa Bosworth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And I'm excited to be the first one presenting, but also bear with me too. If I go too long or too short, feel free to cut me off. This is actually an interactive presentation. So I put the link in the chat. If you go to that, you'll get a little prompt that asks you to put in your name. You could put in an alias, the name of your pet, your real name, however you'd like to. This is an overview, but also to show you kind of the style that we do trainings in. We try to make them as engaging as possible. So once you start, you'll know when to participate, but you can also follow along with my slides, or feel free to kind of roam around as I'm talking through this. So what we want to cover is to meet the team, who is the FODT team, and then the process that we use, the curriculum. We'll have a little story time and then end with some gratitude overall. So our team, we make up the Center for Social Creativity, which is part of a larger consultancy, Vertical Strategies. The center is our nonprofit arm, while Vertical Strategies is an S Corp. And the center really focuses on helping those at the ground level, nonprofits that have a social justice, environmental, healthcare, human services interest really become organizationally sustainable. So with our team, obviously me, I'm going to be serving as the team lead for this. And a little bit about my background. I was the founder of Vertical Strategies. I also have a few different hats. If I get too professory, please tell me to stop. And I'll move it along, but I'm the professor and chair of the health administration programs at Regis University. We've done a lot of grant writing over the last 20 years, so significant. You'll see during story time, we'll talk about the Eastern Plains Healthcare Consortium, and we currently have clients in over 20 states. I'm a fellow of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, which is where I met one of our team members, and also the Aspen Institute. Megan and Dave are on to speak to themselves, so hopefully I do them justice. But Megan is my partner in Vertical Strategies. We're business partners, and she's also serves as the executive director of the center. She has a lot of experience in health needs assessment and being the PI on federal grants, also a lot of grant writing, organizational development. She worked with me as the project director in the consortium, and I've also dragged her along to teach with me at Regis. And then Dave, whom nobody has, well, I think Julie has met him. He is a principal in environmental services at Stantec, and he will be working with us under the center. I met him through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. He's really our environmental justice expert, subject matter expert, and he works with communities across the country, governments, and also nonprofits to help get those EPA grants. We also consider him a subject matter expert in brownfields, and specifically one of his biggest wins was in the Arizona health fields. You'll spot him a lot on the Navajo Nation. He's there a lot doing work with those communities, but also a lot of frontier areas. Okay, so first quiz time. If you are following along, just who are you representing today? And be sure to scroll down. You can choose more than one. And I'm just going to put one in there so we can start seeing the results. So interesting. I know we have some CRESs, but I also just threw this technology on you. We've got some others there, which is good for me to know to kind of hopefully adapt my language to something that's going to resonate with you. Feel free to keep adding it too, because we'll record these results afterwards and get a better feel for it. And I'm not monitoring the chat right now. Oh, yeah, Next Level PPT. Yeah, I'm happy to give you the login to this program. I'm kind of obsessed with it now, but yeah, it's like PowerPoint on steroids overall. So what is our process? How we will support the program overall. A few different stages. First of all, the curriculum design. We intend for this to have a standard curriculum, but also make sure that it's fluid and flexible. We want to make sure that we develop an infrastructure that can be adaptable toward what any challenges or successes or changes that we may need to make. That's also, we want to make it applicable to the culture and the readiness of our participants, and then vetted with the full team. That includes the CRESs, the leadership team. You all have a lot of knowledge that we don't, so we want to be able to incorporate that as well. The second piece will be with the CRESs, and this is what we call didactic training or classroom training. We're envisioning that it'll be in person, but we also see that we're going to be having some virtuals. You can see all my fur babies coworkers are moving around for lunch right now, so thanks for your grace with that. So yes, we expect it to be very personalized and interactive, not just a lecture-based. We want everybody to be engaged. This is also our point in time where we can really establish relationships and rapport with one another, which will be important for transparency and continual growth. And we present our material in as an experiential process as possible, meaning that we're going to try to get it as close to the real thing so that you feel really, the CRESs feel really, really prepared when they're out in the communities. And then we move out into the communities overall. And the first is where one of our team leads, so myself, Megan, or Dave, or maybe multiple of us, we'll go out to one of our region areas, and we envision this happening in every area, and we will lead that participant training. While then the CRES will observe and take notes, and then we'll have a big debrief afterwards. The next stage is switched. It's we want to have this happen with every CRES, but then we watch the CRES lead the participation, and we'll be taking notes and observing. And again, we'll do the debrief. And then after that, we hope that the CRES will feel independent. They're ready to go and lead on their own, and they'll do their thing in their specific region. They'll be leading the training, and we will be on the outskirts to provide support in that continuous learning loop. And did I cover all of those? I think I did. Yes. All right, let's move on. Again, keep me honest with the time and everything as I go along. So coaching support. We also envision peer coaching modeling that we'll be doing with the CRESs, but also encourage them to use it with participants. And we use a model called the RACER model, which stands for these different titles within here. It was developed by the Center for Creative Leadership, which is a national professional development leadership organization. They do a lot of good work. So the first step is building rapport and relationships. We want to be not only trusted advisors, but we hope to learn as much from you as you learn from us too. In the assessment phase, we know that there's going to be challenges. We know that there are going to be road bumps. So we work through an iterative process where we assess the person and the situation that might be happening. This will inevitably come with challenges. So we will help to challenge thinking and promote practice. And Megan and Dave and I do this to each other all the time. It's a form of peer coaching that is, you can never master, but it's always useful overall. And then support, we help identify resources, potential obstacles, understanding the first steps, and then ongoing support. This is all then to get the results that we need, knowing that we're going into uncharted territory. We're all doing something that's related to what we do, but it's new too. So we'll envision the future, specify differences, and create follow-up contact. So then the ongoing support, we foresee that we're going to not just do the one trainings and that process with you, but that we can stay with the CRESs through quarterly and virtual meetings. And they may be in person. I'd love to have them in person as well, as much as we can. Celebrating successes is just as important as talking about challenges. And once we've developed those strong relationships, we hope that we can all be very transparent with the challenges and do co-design of what the solutions could look like. And then continual evolution of the training supports for participants. These are the forums where we see that we'll continue to learn together overall. All right, moving into the curriculum. So the readiness assessment. This would be happening with program participants, and we see that we'll be looking into several different aspects within this. What does the organizational culture look like for that organization? What are their goals and what are their current programs? Are they wanting to start a new program, or are they wanting to expand or really sustain something that they're already doing? What does their number of employees, volunteers, and those skill levels look like? We help to develop a matrix on what that may be. Personality. So I am certified in the Myers-Briggs. Megan is certified in emotional intelligence. We find that you don't have to use that specific framework, but that how we cater the education or the pedagogy oftentimes is personality dependent. What is your best learning style overall? Your level of experience with fund development and strategy. Most of our clients are terrified. They don't even want to say the word funding. So we start where our audience is in particular. And then the level of interest. What is their level of commitment? We work with a lot of startups who, want to put everything they have into it, or they think it's a great idea, but they don't have all the capacity that's needed to really be successful. And then the scary budgets, the financing piece. What is their understanding? They don't necessarily have to have a huge understanding, but it'll give the CRESs a lot of good input on that. All right. Then moving on to the big kind of kahuna part of it, the grant writing. So prospecting includes developing research skills. What platforms can they use? We're all fantastic internet stalkers on our team. So how can we apply those skills to our program participants? Alignment of their priorities with the funder, and then systemizing it, creating that research. This is often a piece that is overlooked with a lot of our clients, but building that relationship with the program officer. If we're looking at primarily federal grants, this is often harder to do, but in foundations, I have found that it's often the main kicker, whether or not you're going to get funded. If you can make that program officer your BFF, then that's going to be great for the likelihood of getting funded. And then the writing piece. So this might just be general writing skills, using artificial intelligence responsibly, but also effectively. There have been things that have come out badly about artificial intelligence, but also some good things too. And it can take away a lot of the scariness, especially in those really big grants. The different pieces of a proposal, and then lots and lots of practice. And then the submission. We often don't think about this, but especially for the federal grants, you can get gray hairs, you can develop a bad habit just trying to get through the federal grant portals. So what does that look like for a submission? And then celebration afterwards, and managing expectations. This is emotional and also rationally. You're not going to get funded for everything, and how do you internally manage that within yourself and also your team? Okay, then the grants management piece. We're not done. You get awarded, woohoo, but what do you do after that? The admin stuff can be boring to some, but it's highly, highly important. So how do you integrate that with the rest of your programs? Who's going to staff it and actually run it? The reporting, scheduling, especially for the federal grants, this can be extraordinarily cumbersome. Identification and implementation of our CIC supports too, and then budget allocation and integration. The reporting process, so the nuts and bolts, how are you going to manage the reporting? What will it look like? How are you going to make sure that you're not rushing at the end of every quarter or reporting period overall? And then relationships, again, your program officer is going to be your BFF by the end of the grant too. And so we want to make sure that that relationship is preserved and not just staying in the present, but also looking future forward overall. And then while we'll be looking at grants, we'll also be helping participants look at other things. So obviously earned revenue, are there any earned revenue or service lines, products that they can use to really bolster their budget? But then there's also some other funds. This came about from the Obama administration and has helped a lot of nonprofits. Impact investing. It shows investors a new way to give their money that is not only may provide financial returns, but also a social impact overall. Pay for success is a model that is similar to philanthropy, but you get to keep the payment if you meet the goals that you say you're going to. So there's a higher risk involved with that. And then venture philanthropy, which is another alternative funding source. And when we do go through this, we'll encourage participants not to get to these until they really have the idea of the grant writing down too. Some of these are harder than others, and it's more of a long-term project. And then policy influence. So this will be a piece too, and I think that a lot of the partners will help to develop this. But what does your social capital look like? That may be with the media, that may be with different organizations. We have what we call a social network analysis, which doesn't have to do with social media. It can, but it's a visual representation to find out where your biggest powers of influence are. And then relationship building with local, tribal, state, federal leadership. Understanding agency versus legislative branches. This is often something fundamental, but often that's missed. So what do you really want to target? Then who do you need to? Do you need to go to a bureaucratic agency, or do you need to go to legislation? Understanding, if you are a nonprofit, what those abilities, but also limitations are. A lot of people think that you can't do any policy within a nonprofit, which is a common myth, but you do have to be careful around that. And then impacting policy legislation versus, a statute or how that's implemented. And then associations and like-minded individuals, finding them and bringing them into your circle and getting into their circle too. Then we'll also cover organizational development, the basics, your mission, vision, values, what that looks like and what it looks like in best practices. Strategic planning, probably strategic planning light, but depending on where the organization is, we can do deeper or more shallow with that. So environmental scanning, just developing goals and objectives, stakeholder testing, budgeting, again, that scary budget word, and the timelines and flexibility with it. I find that this often isn't talked about enough, but the organizational's life cycle. So being able to embrace change and being able to diagnose where your organization is within its life cycle, and also attaching that with the culture. What is the culture of your organization? Founder syndrome is huge, especially in nonprofits. So identifying that and looking at what are the benefits of still having your founder in, also what are some of the challenges that might be, and then getting uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Then operationalizing, so prioritizing actions, combining today with the future, your staffing or your volunteer management, and then linking the budget to program, and then continuing that evaluation. You're never done with that. It's always moving. We'd also like to include some leadership development too for the leaders within these participant organizations. So again, it might be program frameworks, talking about what your conflict management style is and how that might apply to the work that you're doing. Grounding in mindfulness, it doesn't necessarily have to be really woo-woo, but whatever works for that individual leader. Finding support, and then emotional intelligence. Right. We also want to link them to resources. So definitely using the CIC platform and how to use that, creating a network for life. I think we're so excited to be part of the MapTech because we see that this is 5 years, but we also see it sustaining in perpetuity overall, and then building a region that sustains. And then more. We know that each community, each participant will have its own unique needs. And so that's why we want to create this infrastructure that's really, really flexible to meet the needs equitably. All right, story time. This is one, we mentioned the Eastern Plains Healthcare Consortium. This was a group of hospitals that I was the founding executive director back in 2016. We started off with 1 member, and by the time that we transitioned out, they were a sustainable organization with 15 members. I know we're going to be working with a lot more participants, but this is some of the numbers that we were able to achieve for them. We wanted to be able to keep them independent and thriving. So we had over 1.2 billion in secondary economic impact, helped them get over 100 million in grants and appropriations for the member hospitals. During that time, 0 hospitals closed. So that's a big win. All of those hospitals are still thriving. We influenced 30 pieces of legislation and policy that impacted the Eastern Plains of Colorado. Over 40 industry partners. You can't do this alone. It's definitely a village, and then 2 staff. Megan Galaviz and I were the staff for the consortium. All right, gratitude. We want to spread it all around. Pop quiz again. How well do you feel you understand what we're going to be doing? Absolutely no clue. Some idea, but eager to learn more. Obviously, I'm on the FODT team, so I'm going to pick that. And again, if you're not there yet, I encourage you to vote later on because we can keep these results. And that is what I have to share.
Thank you very much, Melissa. That helps me at least have a framework in my mind of all the offerings that you guys have. So as you were speaking, I could think of multiple instances where I would really like to pick your brain. So be ready for that. So our next speaker that we will have is Caleb with the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy. Big partner for us, work very closely with these guys, and I can't think of them enough because they are very responsive with things that I put out there into the universe. So thank you so much. And Caleb, go ahead and share your screen and off you go.
Awesome. Caleb's going to be talking about the grant application work that we do. But my name's Wendelin, and I'm the Senior Advisor for Policy at the Alliance and a member of the Executive Steering Committee here at the MapTech. I'm going to just give a little bit of an introduction for who we are at the Alliance so that Caleb's discussion about our grant writing work that we do at the Alliance can be put into context. And I will start off by saying probably one of the biggest feathers in our cap, or the accomplishments that our very young organization is so very proud of. It really truly is being a part of this MapTech. It is such an honor to be serving the 28 tribes in EPA Region 8 along with all of you, and to have been part of the application process with a number of the people I'm staring at on the screen right now, and to finally be implementing. So thank you all, and following on Melissa's excellent presentation there, really leading with gratitude on this. So thank you so much for that. We at the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy, we try to call ourselves the Alliance and not some acronym that isn't so pretty. So we call ourselves the Alliance. We're a relatively new organization, coming up on 2 years old, but it had previous incarnations, different names, different funders, and was very much led by our founder, CEO, president, everything, chief bottle washer some days, Sherry Smith, who is of Mi'kmaq descent. And she and I met years ago, more than 20 years ago in Washington, D.C., very much in conjunction with the American Council on Renewable Energy, where she was a staff member and I was a member. And we found each other about 1.5 years ago through the MIT Indigenous Fellowship Initiative, just as she was getting this launched up. So we had a couple of prior names. And at this point, we are, I don't even know what our number is. We're well over 40 team members now, across several different departments or pillars. And vast majority of our team members are Native. I am not Native. I'm the only non-Native member of the senior leadership team, and I carry that responsibility with all due seriousness. But our departments, I run the policy team, and Caleb is part of that. Oh, I'm messing up and going all over your PowerPoint, aren't I, Caleb?
That's okay. I can keep up.
Okay, you can keep up. Thank you. I appreciate it. You can see the slide in front of you showing our departments or our pillars. Caleb and I come from the energy policy, government relations side of things. Sometimes I like to slide tax in there because tax is such a guiding force of the work that we do in the clean energy space. We have a very robust team that focuses on technical assistance, and a similarly robust team focused on education and workforce development. That is led by my wonderful colleague, Dr. Ramon Sanchez, who is also a member of this TICTAC delivery team. And then we're kind of known for our events as well. We put on some pretty fantastic events. We run a Tribal Energy Equity Summit. We do a webinar series, and then coming up in about 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we're putting on a major event in conjunction with RE+, the conference organizers who put together the largest renewable energy conference in the world. 40,000 of our closest friends and colleagues will be gathering in Anaheim in about 3 weeks, and we at the Alliance are the chosen tribal interest group, I believe is the formal title. And we're holding a workshop there for non-Native developers and service providers and such who are in the clean energy space and want to learn about how to do that work. And that's sort of cross-cultural, going both ways across the two cultures, the Native and the non-Native, is very much a part of our culture. Of our corporate, our organizational culture at the Alliance for Tribal Clean Energy. Our founder and CEO, Sherry Smith, she says it in her native Mi'kmaq language, but the notion of two-eyed seeing, and how we all collectively, Native and non-Native, can work together to work on the just transition. So within our pillar, and I'm going to hand it over here to Caleb here in just a second. Within our pillar, we have both the grant application writing piece, which sometimes then falls into the implementation, which is what brings us here today. But we also do a lot of policy work as well. And Melissa talked about some of the policy work that she does within her organization. Our policy work focuses squarely on Native Americans and clean energy. That's what we do. Very recently, we're very proud that we filed a petition with FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It was filed just this last Friday afternoon, with the idea being to request of the commission that when tribes and tribally owned organizations are trying to get in the interconnection queue, the line, if you will, to hook into, to interconnect their utility scale renewable energy projects to the electrical grid, that they be exempted from paying significant security deposit fees. These security deposit fees range on the order of $5 to $7 million. It's not just, put down $10 to hold your dinner reservation. This is a serious addition to capital requirements for building these projects. And it's a new requirement that was established last year when FERC passed an order, notably FERC Order 2023, requiring that folks who wanted to have a spot in these interconnection queues pay a security deposit fee in order to discourage speculation in the market. And speculation had been happening. And our argument is basically that tribes are not speculating. Tribes are there trying to serve their people with basic necessities, including these electrons, and that the disparities that we see across the country in retail electrical rates, in electrification generally, and in the quality of service nationwide has been largely a result of the electric grid, as well as the larger capital markets largely skipping over Indian country. And so we believe that an exemption from this rule is appropriate and just and in line with trust responsibility. That's just a little bit about what we do at the Alliance. And with that, I'll hand it over to Caleb, please, to talk about our grant program. Thanks. Happy to answer any questions later on.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. So like Melissa also mentioned, that starting where her clients are, that's what we do with tribes. Is we start with we follow their lead, and we don't give assistance. We don't advertise. We don't try to find jobs. We wait until we're invited, and then we find out what projects they're interested in doing, what funding they need, what gaps that might exist, and that's sort of where the entry point to the pre-application part of our grant program is, assessing what they want to do and what funding opportunities might exist to make it happen. And part of that process could also include some strategy sessions and some project assessment. We will travel to the tribes themselves and have multi-day planning meetings where we can sort of tease out and try to solidify what Gwendolyn likes to call the four corners of the project that they want to do, and how they're going to pull it off and what it would take. So we can also work with them on project scoping and budgeting and creating a work plan. And all of this with an eye towards the specific funding or braiding of funds that a project might require. We have a very robust technical assistance team, like Gwendolyn mentioned, and we have people who are engineers. We can help design utility scale solar projects. Transmission lines. We have expert mapping services. We can really work on siting and really help tribes hone and design a project, a clean energy project that would really work for them. And then we also have workforce development experts in education. Dr. Ramon Sanchez, as Gwendolyn mentioned, that's really where his expertise lies. And his team. We have a number of people who are workforce development experts. So a lot of the federal grants that are out there right now have a workforce development and community education component to it. So we have the resources to help develop that as well. And then from there, of course, you actually need to write the grant. So we can help write the grant. We can help sort of shape the narratives. We can help shape the budgets and make sure that they are in line and address everything that needs to be addressed. If the tribe has that sort of expertise, we can come in and just do a review, a compliance review. We are kind of a full shop where we can do everything, or we can do the bits and pieces that fill in the gaps that the tribes have, whatever they feel like they need. And then submission. As Melissa says, you can develop bad habits when you're trying to navigate the many federal portals out there. None of them work very well or are intuitive. So I often have a mohawk from pulling on my hair working with these things. But we do have, we have a lot of experience doing that. So if a tribe really just has a problem with submission, then we'll get on the phone, and I've been on the phone with a number of tribes, walking through screen by screen, just making sure it all is uploading properly, and everything, all the check boxes are checked that need to be checked, and that we do that all on time. So that's just a quick, brief run through of our grant program. I did want to mention one of the things that we're very excited about working with MapTech is hiring Leah Bradford, who's our tribal CRES, and she is a wonderful addition to the team. She has the expertise and personality to be able to work with the tribes in all of the states of the region. So it's a little different than the other CRES members, but she's going to be a great support to the CRES team, and I know that they'll be a great support to her as well. So I just wanted to call her out, and happy to answer questions later on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Caleb. And thank you for highlighting Leah's role with us. We're so excited to have her as part of the team and really be the tribal lead on all of this. So when Caleb and I are talking about, the rest of our organization and specifically the grant application writing team, we just wanted to share this with our MapTech community so that you all kind of knew who we were besides our MapTech role. And there's one important point I think that I need to address is that, we at the Alliance do a lot of technical assistance and other work with tribes, and we also do the MapTech. And if there's ever an instance where there's, in fact, a tribe in EPA Region 8 who would want assistance on a specific grant application, we would have a firewall between our MapTech activities and our Alliance activities. And there would be absolutely no advantage to any tribe who kind of came in through one door or the other, because we keep that firewall separate. And that's a very important part of our conflict of interest requirements that we have with our EPA program managers. And those of us who've been in the grant application writing business for decades know very well how to operate with these firewalls and maintain proprietary information and such. And I think that's it for us at the Alliance. Unless anybody has anything else, we'll hand it back to you, Barb. Thanks.
Thanks so much, you guys. Yeah, I mean, of all of our partners, from a tribal perspective, I really feel lucky to have you guys on board because of the breadth of services that you do offer. And they're all very much in need, both on tribal lands and off tribal lands. But thank you so much, you guys. That helps a lot. And now we'll just transition into Lisa, who is with Results Grant Writing. And I just recently learned that Lisa was a big part in why we are all here. because she apparently worked on the proposal way before I came on scene, and played a big part in us getting funded. So I feel really lucky that you're here and I get to meet you and we can get a little better understanding of the services under your grant writing umbrella, if you will. So thank you so much, Lisa, for helping us out here today.
Well, thank you for the invitation to be here. I am so proud to have been able to serve MSU and all of the partners, including the Alliance. So really highlight of the career for me to be able to help with this application. I think it's going to do amazing things for Region 8, particularly in Colorado, which is where I'm at. So good to see many of you again. Let me share my screen. I'm going to talk more about how to work with a consultant grant writer, because I think a lot of the people that you're going to serve through MapTech are going to want grant writing assistance. And so this talk is aimed primarily at those people so that they have some background about how to go about finding the right person to help with their project. So let me switch to presenter view. All right. So some things that I want to say, first of all, about finding the right person, some vetting questions to consider as they're interviewing prospective grant writers. Does that individual have a track record of writing successful proposals to that funder that you're going after? As you all know, federal grant agencies have their own unique style, and some of them have different submission tools, different attachments. So you want to work with somebody who's had some success with that particular agency before. Also, how familiar is the grant writer with the topic area? I can envision very easily a lot of the work that people who avail themselves of MapTech services are going to be having very technical projects. And so figuring out the right person to speak to that type of project is going to be really important to them. And I'm so pleased to see the curriculum that Melissa has established to help people think through their grant programs, what Wendelin and Caleb are going to be doing, helping people scope out their project. So a lot of the groundwork is going to be available for a consultant grant writer to come in because of how well-rounded the team for MapTech is. Yet you'll still want to be working with somebody who understands some of the nuances to the field and the topics that your proposal is going to focus on. Not finally, but how does that individual grant writer approach proposal development, and does that match your needs and style? I'm a freelance grant writer, and so a lot of people will choose to do, I'll admit, a lot of grant writers will have their own styles. And what I mean by that is, are they more hands-off? Are they more actively involved in developing the proposal? For example, I am not a scribe. I try to bring what I know from decades of writing grants to any group of clients that I'm working with. And so if you're looking for somebody who's just going to take what you say and write it down, that's a very different approach to grant writing than what others might do. So making sure that the person you're working with has a cultural affiliation with the way that you prefer to have work done. And then finally, the capacity to take on your project. It is a huge effort for these federal grants, and kind of the floor in terms of hours is about 100 hours of work, plus all the hours that the team contributes, because it's not something that the grant writer does in isolation. So it's a huge amount of time and effort. So making sure that the person that you have helping you is really able to focus on your project while the grant's being developed is going to be super important to a successful application. So those are some questions to be thinking about early on when you're interviewing grant writers to help. once you've identified somebody that you are comfortable with, that you're going to start working with, here's some additional follow-on tips that I wanted to share. Things that can simplify everyone's life during the proposal development process, whether you've got 30 days or 45 days, which is the typical length of time for federal grants. But sharing whatever data you have available that can help the grant writer demonstrate the need for your project. Any past proposals, if there's language about your organizational capacity that can be lifted and put into new proposals. Past evaluation results to demonstrate that you are capable of doing the work that you're proposing, what research base there is for your project. So if you're using evidence-based practices, what are those and what is the research either that you've done through your own evaluation or research about similar projects, additional things to share, resumes, biographies for the key staff. Those are things that you can give to a grant writer early in the process because it's typically a work in progress to develop the program idea. It's unusual that clients will know, here are the 18 steps we're going to do, and this is who's going to do it. Usually there's things that grant writers can be doing before all of the program nuances are hammered out and finalized with project partners. So don't wait until all of the details are known before getting started would be my recommendation. Give your grant writer something to do in the meantime while you're still figuring out what elements of the program are going to come into play in your proposal. So other ideas about working with a grant writer is making sure that you set up a regular meeting schedule. And this again reflects back on how you want to work with that grant writer. Is this somebody that you want to see on a semi-regular basis? And it's much easier in my experience to schedule meetings that you can cancel if you don't need them than to try and pull everybody together. So at the very first meeting, at your kickoff project meeting with the grant writer, I'd recommend you just have a standing meeting scheduled. Also, be very, very clear about what pieces your consultant grant writer is going to be doing and which pieces you and your project partners are going to be taking the lead on. That's so important because you don't want to be a week away from submission and realize that you thought the grant writer was doing this and they haven't started that because they thought you were doing that. So making sure you really go through every single piece of the application that is going to be submitted and assigning who's doing what and giving a deadline to that. And speaking of deadlines, another recommendation is that you commit to a deadline with, or commit to a timeline that has deadlines on it. So working backwards from when it's due, how many days do you want to review it? Do you need an editor to go through it? When is the budget due? And I would highly recommend that the budget be done sooner than later. It typically gets done toward the very end of your project development period, but your budget influences in a humongous way which program activities are going to feature prominently in the grant applications. So that helps your grant writer to know what money is going to go toward what. And then aiming to submit at least a day before the deadline, like Caleb alluded to. And I saw Melissa's comment about the grades. It is a very stressful time. And you need to make sure you understand with your grant writer who is responsible for submission. So for example, at Results, I can provide technical assistance around submission, but I don't submit for clients. They're the ones that have to hit the actual button and take ownership of that process. So making sure you understand who's doing what when it comes to submission is another thing that I'd recommend that you be very, very clear about from the very beginning. And I think that's everything that I wanted to say now, but I'm happy to take questions in the time we have left.
Thank you, Lisa, very, very much. If anything pops up in the chat, I'll holler, but we're a small group. So if anybody wants to unmute, feel free to do that. I had one quick question, and I don't know if it's ever even come up, but what if a group is, you're working with them to write a grant, and we know we want to, highlight past successes, but maybe they had some issues on a prior grant where, some benchmarks weren't met, or, there were some issues. Have you ever had to explain that within that current application, or no?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yes, in fact, I can't remember who mentioned workforce being something that's part of a lot of grant applications now. But if anybody through MapTech is applying for ETA grants, the Employment Training Administration through the U.S. Department of Labor, there's actually an attachment if they've had a similar grant where you have to disclose what your project objectives were and whether or not you met them, or what percentage toward achievement did you reach. And if you are below a certain threshold, your application will be penalized for that. So in circumstances like that, you absolutely do have to explain the unusual circumstances that led to your inability to achieve that result. You may have a very good reason for why that happened, but some agencies like DOL are starting to become very savvy about looking at past results. So if there's any doubt, my recommendation is to explain those circumstances rather than leave it to a reviewer to attempt to make up a reason why you may or may not have hit your benchmarks.
Thank you. Very helpful. Does anybody else have any questions for any of our speakers today? If not, you might get 5 or 6 or 7 minutes back today. This is recorded, so it will be on our website. We do plan to do these every 2 weeks now that we've got the ball rolling. And we will be highlighting services and resources through our other partners, in addition to other topics that are pertinent to MapTech here. So, and if you guys have ideas, if there's a webinar you think would be something we should think about and put together, feel free to contact us, because that can only help, right? So, and if that's where we are, get a hold of us anytime with any questions, and we'll be in touch. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
Have a good day.